Good morning, Jody. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
Thank you for taking time away from your very busy schedule.
It's my pleasure to be
Yes,
here, really.
yes. In the name of all of our sisters, thank you for embracing and accepting and loving the position as president of Siena Heights University.
Well, I don't serve in my own name. I serve in the name of our sisters, and I am honored to be able to do that.
And for how many years have you been?
I'm in my 12th year now, believe it or not.
no.
The time goes so quickly. Yeah.
One of our formers was here yesterday, Pat Creighton.
Don't know her.
I bet Sister Jean would know her. And her nephew brought her. She hadn't been here for a long time. She could not get over the growth and the new buildings that belong to Siena.
Yeah.
And that's all happened since you've...
Well,
You've
thank
come
you.
in.
You know, it's the effort of a lot of people, and the buildings are just things that we needed to do. But the most important thing, our aspect of Siena, are its students, and they are just wonderful young people. And I'm so blessed to be able to be part of that community. So.
Well, I must tell you, yesterday I was in Bixby X-ray, and there was a woman wearing Siena Heights Saints.
Yeah.
And there was a young man with her. I presumed it was her son. And so I said, I'm a saint also. So 3 other people were in the waiting room, and they all talked about Siena.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And it was a football player that she had.
Oh, probably get an X-ray.
Yes. She was the trainer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, and
sure.
she loves you.
Oh, she's
Yes.
a great woman. She's
Yeah.
a great woman. So good with our athletes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's unusual, isn't it, to have a woman trainer?
Well, there are a lot of women trainers now. It's probably a little bit more unusual for one to be, you know, well, she's in charge of all of our sports. And then, of course, she has interns with her. But she's done a great job for us over the years, and just as a real saint in a lot of ways.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. We're blessed
so
to have her.
where did your life begin, Peg?
Well, I was born in New Jersey, yeah, and my mom and dad packed up the 5 of us and moved to Florida when I was 9 or 10. I was going in the 4th grade, and I'll never forget it, a brown station wagon with 7 of us in it, you know, moving to Florida, and so we arrived down there, and I got a place to live, and then I went to St. Anthony's grade school, which our sisters staffed, and
What city is that?
in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort
Yeah,
Lauderdale.
yeah, lived about 5 blocks from the school, so I spent a lot of time at the school and after school with the sisters, and I just loved my life there. And
Did your siblings too?
yes, yep, they all went to St. Anthony's. Well, my brother was going into high school, so he went to St. Thomas Aquinas, and so.
Do they all live in Florida now, your brothers? And
3 of my siblings live there, 2 of my brothers and my sister. I only have 1 sister, and my other brother lives in North Carolina. He retired.
And do you have reunions?
Oh, we see each other all the time.
Oh,
yeah, it's
well,
wonderful. We're a very close-knit family, and Mom and Dad are both gone now, and but we are still very close to one another. And
What was your father's profession?
my dad was, in his younger days, he was a contractor. He built homes, and he built our house in New Jersey, and then. When we moved to Florida, he eventually became the chief the chief for code compliance in the city of Fort Lauderdale with buildings and stuff. So.
Well, he saw a lot in his lifetime.
Oh
didn't
yeah,
he?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
And
your mother?
my mother was stayed at home and took care of the 5 of us, and her father, who was ill at one time, and her mother, who was ill, and she was a wonderful caretaker and a very nurturing woman, and so I had a great family life. I was very blessed. You don't see a lot of the same thing today, you know.
What is the nationality?
We're Irish primarily, 75% Irish and 25% German. Yeah, yeah. Albert is German, but my grandmother on my father's side, my father's mother was Irish, but my mother was a McAtee, and so we're primarily Irish. Yeah. So.
And tell me, were the grandparents living nearby in New Jersey?
I never met my grandfather on my father's side. He died before I was born. But my grandmother was a character. She loved parties. She loved to have a good time. She sort of ruled the roost in some ways, you know. And I looked a lot. I take after her in my looks and my father more so than my mother. And so her nickname was Mamie. Her real name was Mary. And they used to call me Little Mamie, you know, because I looked like her. So, but
I bet she loved that.
Oh, she loved it. Yeah. And she'd come down to visit us when we were in Florida. Dad would go up and get her and bring her back down for a while and stuff. But she was a character. Yeah. She was a character.
So 5 blocks from St. Anthony's.
Right.
Yes. Who are some of your sisters? Or
well,
I'm testing your memory now.
Oh, no. I could name the ones who were very influential in my life. Probably the most influential sister in grade school is since passed away, but Sister Jean Ofterhide. She was my 8th grade teacher, and I just loved her. She was... when I think of when she left St. Anthony's, I would write to her, and you know, I'm thinking, here's a kid, you know, she would always write back, you know, and take the time to do that, and take the time to see me when she came back in town, and things of that nature. And then Margarita Ruiz, who is now Tay, you know. And I see her when I go to Florida. I still belong to the Florida chapter, so I see her when I go down there.
She's in West Palm.
Yes, she's at La Casa, and she and Margot are there, and so and she loved my brother. We were in the choir together, and she just loved my brother. He was like a little cherub, a chubby little guy, and she just loved him, and always says, "Say hello to Paul," you know. And they had a little reunion not too long ago, and she was there with them, and they just loved it. So it was great. So those were and then in high school, I went to St. Thomas Aquinas. Sister Joan Marconi was very influential in my life, and Sister Anthony, I can't think of her name.
Last name.
Her newer name, but she's since passed away. And those two were probably the most influential.
Did Joan become your sponsor?
No, I didn't really have a sponsor. You know, when I entered, you just entered, and there was no real sponsor.
Didn't you ask someone or about what's the process here?
Well, no, I wrote to Rosemary, Sister Margaret Mary Hines was in charge of vocations, and so I wrote to her, and of course back then, in 1972, when I entered, you had to go through psychological testing and all that, so I came up for those, and I don't know how I passed, but I did.
And here you are.
And here I am. And so, you know, that was the process. You just wrote, but there were, Sister Joan Whiteman was very influential in my upbringing at Barry, when I went to Barry for 2 years. You couldn't enter right from high school. You had to go to college or work for 2 years before you entered. And so I went to Barry for 2 years.
II.
Oh, yes, yeah. I never wore a habit except for our first profession. We wore a short habit, but never wore it after that. It was just more ceremonial at the time.
So it wasn't a big leap for you to go to Barry then?
To go back? You mean
No, to go from high school to Barry.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't know anybody there, but
Did-
I mean, at the time.
Were you a commuter? Or
No, I lived on
you
campus.
lived on
Yeah,
campus?
yeah.
Who was the president then?
Sister Dorothy Brown.
Yeah.
And but I didn't have much contact with her. And then I have a funny story. When I was a kid, I worked in the dining hall there at Barry to earn spending money and stuff. And I worked in the nuns' dining room. It was a separate dining room at the time. And so I worked both dining rooms, but that one particular day, Rosemary was down visiting. And she came through the line and with Sister Dorothy, and Rosemary asked for some soup, and she said, "Could I have a cup of soup?" And I said, "Sure." Well, I didn't have any cups there, so I put it in a little bowl. And Dorothy Brown said, "Sister said a cup." And I said, "Well, Sister's going to have to wait because I got to go get a cup. We don't have any cups right here." And Rosemary says, "Oh, honey, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter." But it's so typical of Rosemary.
Yes,
And but
she was the major superior. at
yes,
that
when
time.
I entered,
Yes,
yes, she
yeah.
was. Yeah, and she
Was
was.
she surprised to see you then when you arrived on?
Well, I think I had written her.
Oh,
She's the
yeah.
one who told me I had to wait 2 years, so she probably knew who I was. But I mean, we didn't sit down and talk or anything like that. And then you know, it was suggested by Rosemary that I try to get into a prayer group at Barry. But the sisters really weren't too open to that at the time. You know, it was after all the changes, there was a lot of turmoil, and I understand that looking back now. And so it was a little bit more difficult being accepted, you know, than into a prayer group. But that was okay. You know, it didn't discourage me from entering.
What were you surprised about when you entered? I mean, what was the most
Well, probably that.
puzzling thing, or
I wouldn't say puzzling. There were only two of us when I entered.
you and
Mary Ellen Lechieski.
oh my God,
And we're the only crowd who can say we're 100%. So, and my mother, I can remember her saying that there are only two, you know, I hope you all get along because it would be terrible if you didn't. And we're great friends. And when we get together now, it's like we've never been apart. You know, we were very grateful for that. But I guess it was a different time in formation. Like there were 3 people in formation and 2 of us, you know. So, I mean, in a sense, we had 3 directors and 2 of us, you know. And people always say how tough it was in the past, but when you had 3 directors, there wasn't too much that was missed, you know. But they were great people, and particularly Sarah Sharkey was very meaningful in my life, and her love for Scripture and her prayerfulness when she taught us Scripture really taught me how to pray and with Scripture, and I'm so grateful to her for that gift because it's sustained me through my whole life, and I visit Sarah to this day, and we laugh about things, and we have a great relationship. And
it's
so
precious.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
My
So,
next door neighbor.
yeah, that's right. You're right next door to her.
Yes,
That's right. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And who else was on the?
Well, Celine Marie Reagan was director of formation the first year, but then she moved out of formation, and Sarah became the director. But the first year, Sarah and Katie McGrail were on the road a lot. They were doing ongoing formation. And then when Celine left, Sarah they didn't travel as much. And the next year, 9 people entered, but none of them stayed. None of them are with us today, you know.
my.
They're all good women, you know, but none of them stayed. They all
Was
have left.
Melba Viney?
Now,
near you?
Melba entered the year before Mary Ellen and I, and the person she entered with left. so she was put in with our group, okay, our couple or whatever. There were only two of us, you know. So, so Melba joined up with us then. Yeah. So she really had 4 years of formation instead of 3. So.
So you finished your bachelor's degree here at Siena?
No, I finished my bachelor's degree at Wayne State.
Mm.
When we entered, we did go to school, and Mary Ellen was a French major. I was sociology with a pre-social work curriculum, and we had our choice either Wayne State or University of Michigan at Dearborn, because the formation house was in Dearborn at that time. And they didn't have French at the University of Michigan, Dearborn, so we both went to Wayne State because I thought it would be easier traveling-wise and all that. So,
did you live with in a convent?
yes, St. Clement's
Oh.
in Dearborn. Yeah, yeah. It was a large convent, and that was the formation house at that time.
Yeah. Sharon Spanbauer said when they were living in Detroit during their formation, they also had to work. And she had a job at Hudson's.
Right.
Was that part of your?
No. We did volunteer work, but we didn't. I remember I worked with alcoholics at Salvation Army. You know, and spent one summer in Tallahassee working with Rosemary Finnegan and Rosemary Finnegan and Maureen Fenlon with the families of prisoners. And that was my first love. I was going to work with prisoners when I graduated from college, and met with the, I think it was Cardinal Dearden in Detroit, and there was no money for that. But anyway, he found some money. And then when they went to hire somebody for that position, they didn't hire me. They hired Helen Walsh because she had much more experience. And that was meant to be, because then I worked with emotionally disturbed adolescent girls in a residential treatment facility and in Dearborn Heights at Vista Maria. And I loved those kids. I loved those kids, and they just had bad breaks in life, and they could be tough. I was chased with razor blades and bottles and everything else, but
did you ever end up in the classroom teaching?
No, I was never a teacher.
Oh, isn't that?
I'm a social worker.
Yes.
I did therapy for years with students at Barry, and then supervised the therapists and did different things there.
How did you get to Barry?
Well, I worked with I went back to school. I worked at Vista Maria for about 5 years, and then I wanted to go back and get my master's in social work. And since all my family was down there, I applied to Barry and got accepted, and did the master's program. And then when I graduated, I was looking for a ministry, and I was offered the director of Catholic Charities in Hollywood, Florida. But they would only give me $100 a month for housing, and I couldn't live anywhere for $100 a month. There weren't any convents available at the time, and there was just nowhere to live for that amount of money, and so I turned the position down because I didn't think it was just either. I knew they had the salary there, and so I continued looking, and I saw in the newspaper that Barry University was looking for a counselor. So Jean was president then. So I called Jean, and she thought it was an admissions counselor, but it wasn't. It was a psychological counselor, a therapist in the counseling center, and I applied for that job and got it. And
is that the first time you met Jean O'Loughlin?
No, I met her. I didn't know her well, but she was on the leadership team when I entered, and so I met her then. She was on Rosemary's Council. Yeah.
So her reputation preceded your first.
Right. I knew of her, but I didn't know her, and actually, when I worked at Barry, I didn't really know her very well until my mother became ill, and the person I was living with went up north during the holidays to see her family, and then Jean said to me, "I don't want you to be alone." My mother was diagnosed with lung cancer, and "I don't want you to be alone. Come stay with me." So I moved in over the holidays with Jean, and she was very supportive, and that's how we became
Friends.
very good friends. And then the person I lived with decided to move back up north because her parents were getting elderly, and Jean invited me to live with her, and so that's how we got to know each other well.
So you took on different positions. So
Yeah, I started out in the counseling center,
Yes.
and then I did that for a number of years, and I was the only therapist at the time, and then it got to be a lot of work. I worked from 8 to 5 and saw everybody on the hour, and then we hired Kathy Nolan, and Kathy Nolan came down and worked there, and then I was promoted to associate vice president for student services, and did that for many years. I oversaw counseling and healthcare and campus ministry, and also sat on Jean's administrative team along with the vice president, so I would learn.
Oh, wow.
And then my last 10 years at Barry, Jean asked me to come over and work with her, and so I did that. And then eventually became executive vice president. So, yeah, it was great training. She was a great mentor, and
That's where you got the building bug.
Yeah. Well, she when she first came to Barry, Ted Hesburgh was the president of Notre Dame, and she invited Father Hesburgh down to get his advice. And he said, "Well, Jean, the first thing you have to do is build a campus." And she was a builder. And when I came to Siena, there were some things that were needed in order to serve our students better. We needed a stadium, and we needed a student union.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just started to snowball, and we've been very blessed with good donors and people who believe in our mission, and so we were able to build. And the congregation, as you know, gave us St. Joseph's.
Yes.
And
the academy.
The academy.
Where the Department of Education,
Right,
is that right?
right.
How's that working out?
Wonderfully, and it's state of the art. We're doing it in phases. We're
Renovating, you mean?
Yeah, right. Each floor, like the first floor was 1.5 million. The next floor will be 1.9 million because we have to do a new elevator, and the next floor will be probably back to 1.5. But it's state of the art, and so we're raising money now for phase 2, and so fundraising is never ending.
No,
So.
but you enjoy that.
I enjoyed meeting with people. I had a lunch and a dinner yesterday with donors and enjoyed every minute of it. They're great people, and we just people are willing to give if they believe in what you're doing. Yeah.
Plus the nursing school across this.
Right, that's doing very well.
Grows, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yes.
Continues.
We have a great director now, and we had a great director to begin the program, and now we have a great director to continue on. So
if you would imagine in the middle of the Adrian room, a beautiful table for 5 set up, who would be the people? I mean, there's candles there, and of course a tablecloth, and the proper napkins and silverware. Who would you want to invite to join you for that lovely dinner and conversation?
well, besides my family.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, there's no room for them, right? Unfortunately. Another day.
Yeah, right. Well, it would be Jean O'Loughlin, Joan Whiteman, Jane Bauer. Jane Bauer is she was a former Sister of Mercy and now is a companion of Mercy. And Jane and I we worked together at Vista Maria many, many years ago, and we've remained great friends ever since.
Does companion mean like our associate?
No, it's a little bit different than that.
Are they vowed?
They take a vow of service, of mercy, and she loves being that and doing that, and she is a very merciful person. So she shows
and a lifelong friend.
And a lifelong friend. Yeah. Even though it would probably be, even though I said no family, it'd probably be my sister. Yeah, and so those would be the ones I'd have around the family.
What fun.
Yeah, we'd have a great time. We always do when we get together.
You'd be laughing.
Yeah, we'd be laughing and having a great time. But my reach is further than that, though, too. You know, I have a lot of wonderful people in my life, and I'm very, very blessed in so many ways. At Siena, I have a wonderful team with whom I work, each gifted in so many ways, and I'm very thankful every day for the goodness of people. And
well, the university is so fortunate to have you as president. Somewhere along the line, though, we missed a little piece of, you must have a PhD.
I do. In social work.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a traditional, I never set out to be a college president. I have to say that. I could go back to being a therapist tomorrow and be very happy. But that's not what was in God's plan.
Yeah.
And
well, you are a therapist in some respects.
Yeah, I still use my skills in a lot of ways, but I think that the thing that has sustained me through the years has certainly been our God, our good God, and prayer, and good relationships. And I think that all life is relational, and I just believe so strongly in that and we don't walk alone. We only walk alone when we choose to walk alone. And I have had great companions along the way, just wonderful ones.
And your gift of preaching too, you do that every day in your writing. You do that every day in addressing the students, the faculty, your meetings. You are constantly sharing the love of God with them.
Well, thank you. I hope
Yes.
so. I say to all of our people all the time when I talk with them that, you know, you can never undermine or underestimate is what I really mean to say, the influence you can have on people negatively or positively. And hopefully our influence is positive. And it can be in just a very little thing. You know, giving a kid a hug or walking him down to the financial aid office and make sure he gets his refund check, and making an exception when you need to. I hope that my hope is that I always have a generous heart and a compassionate heart, and I think that's what in the end makes a good leader. Because it's people you're responding to and interacting with. And people, if you can have empathy with people, I believe that that's the most important thing in life. And the day we don't have that is the day we ought to hang it up.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
because
Those are wonderful words and a good message for the young students today.
oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
because
yes.
they face so much more than we ever did.
You know, it just amazes me how some of them stand upright some days and walk. And when you know their story and all they've been through, and I could tell you, if we had more time, story after story after story. And and they are good, good people, and they succeed against all odds.
And the gift that the Siena gives to the men and women, young men and women from foreign countries.
Mm-hmm.
You have several, don't you, at this?
Yeah, we have some international students, and then we support some financially who need to make a difference in different countries, and it's always our hope and our expectation that they'll return to their own country, because that's why we agreed to really sort of take them on so that they can go back and make that part of the world a better place as well.
And you did that at Barry also.
Yes, we did. Yes, I learned well.
Yes,
I learned well. Yeah.
Well, you were part of that.
Yes, I was.
Yes,
Yeah. I worked up closely with a lot of the,
And don't
particularly
you
the
love,
sisters from Africa. And Jean was very generous. So.
And don't you love to hear their success stories?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Emmy is one of them. You
Yes,
know, and
yes.
she's just a light. In fact, when she's doing her internship next semester here, she's going to live with us. So.
Oh, how
Yeah, when she's here in town for her internship or her field placement or whatever it is in her studies. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Peg,
Yeah.
keep on going, all right?
Oh, listen, I love what I'm doing, and thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jody, for doing this. This
Yes,
is a real
yes.
ministry to people as well.
Well, it's wonderful for our archives
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
but
great.
more so knowing the other side of you, because here you are in this incredible position which you don't make a big deal about. You're
No,
very-
I'm just another person who happens to be in that role.
Yeah, you're part of the wheel.
That's right.
Right,
No
yeah.
one is more important
Important
than anybody
Yeah,
else.
sounds like Mother Gerald.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all a part of the same ministry.
Yes.
And as I said, I don't do it in my own name. Yeah.
God bless you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for taking time.